feeling free and it feels so right. Oh, time to do the things I like. Gonna see a princess, everything's alright. Oh, no job but an answer to. Ain't a fixture in the palace zoo. No, and since the carpet night's off me, I'm living life now that I'm free. Yeah, let me get myself together. Now I got myself together. Now I made it through the weather. Better days are gonna get better. I'm so happy the carpet night is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm putting on my shades to cover my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo.
Solo, A Star Wars Story is an origin story for Han Solo and is sort of the second anthology movie that Disney has made for Star Wars, the second standalone film. It is directed by mostly Ron Howard and like 20% Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and the movie basically stars Alden Ehrenreich, Donald Glover, Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, and some other people that I'm probably forgetting, of course, because I can't do my job. And the plot of this movie is basically what you think it would be. It is basically how Han Solo comes to be the guy we know and love from New Hope. We get to see this guy's origins. We get to see an origin story for this guy, and he has to go on this crime thing with Woody Harrelson and Emilia Clarke, and all kinds of events happen that we've been told about for many years. So guys, as you know, I am kind of a massive Star Wars fan. I am obsessed with Star Wars, like probably way too much. I love the franchise. I grew up with it, and I love it even more as I get older because I realize how great it is. New Hope and Empire are some of the best things on planet Earth, and Return of the Jedi is very good, and the prequels aren't very good, and I thought that Disney picked it up with Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rogue One, which I all thought were also very good but not perfect movies. Most of you guys already know this, but just in case you're a new person watching, I just wanted to put myself in context as a Star Wars fan. I've been a fan of this stuff for forever, and I'm still obsessed with it. I am such a child when it comes to this franchise. When I heard they were making a Solo movie, I was kind of just like, that sounds like a complete cash grab. Like, why would you make a Han Solo movie? What is the point of that? Why though? And then, like, I saw that Phil Lord and Chris Miller were directing it, and I was like, that's gonna be really cool, I'm really excited. And then they got fired, and then I was like, oh shoot, this movie's gonna be awful. And then Ron Howard came on, and it was like, yes, this movie's gonna be bad, he's just gonna listen to everything Kathleen Kennedy wants him to do, and they just want to make a safe movie for money. And then I figured out Lawrence Kasdan was writing, and I was like, what? That's great! How did I not know this before? Lawrence Kasdan wrote Empire Strikes Back, and he was a big part of Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. That's gonna be great. I love Lawrence Kasdan. But I was still very skeptical, because it was a story that didn't really need to happen. It could have stayed in our imaginations. Like, we don't need a movie about Han Solo, but I was like, okay, if Lawrence Kasdan wants this idea to be a thing, there's gotta be some meat behind this movie. There's gotta be something really good about this to actually make it have a purpose. And Lawrence Kasdan is one of my heroes because at heart I'm a writer. And Lawrence Kasdan is an incredible writer. He was behind most of the stuff that happened in Empire Strikes Back. He also wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, so I was like, Lawrence Kasdan, you better bring me something good. If this is your vision and this is the project that you've wanted to do for a long time, I really want to see this movie shine. Like I said, I've liked the other Disney Star Wars movies a lot. Like, Force Awakens is my favorite of the three, and Rogue One and Last Jedi I think are very good, but flawed. And so Solo, I was kind of like, Disney kind of knows what they're doing so far, so I was kind of like, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt on this movie. Like, it's had a lot of production problems, but I'm gonna try to be optimistic, and it was just fine. It was okay. It certainly could have been a lot worse, that's for sure. This movie could have been an absolute disaster, and I want to commend this movie for actually not being a total mess. There are some messy things in this movie, but the whole movie isn't a complete disaster like something DC would make. This movie actually is competently made. The story is competent. It's actually, like, it's a well-made movie for the most part, which surprised me. I thought this movie would be completely disastrous from start to finish because of all the problems. Some of the pros I gotta say about this movie that I really admired were Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. Like, there's been a lot of talk about him and how people are like, Han Solo shouldn't be played by a different guy. Han Solo should always be Harrison Ford. You can't have him play a different guy. This is terrible, I hate it. But I was always just kind of like, that seems like a decent idea. idea, especially if Phil Lord and Chris Miller are the ones that chose him. I was like, Alden Ehrenreich was very good in Hail Caesar. He's a very charismatic guy, so I'm really excited to see what he does with Han Solo, and I liked him a lot in this movie, actually. Like, sure, he doesn't get as good development as I kind of wanted him to get, like, a lot of it is rushed, but as a character, I thought he was really well done in this movie. He's different than Harrison Ford for sure. He's not doing an impression of Harrison Ford at all. He's a completely younger Han Solo. He's a lot more innocent. He doesn't really know a lot of stuff. He's kind of just still, like, learning things about his own self. He still has that youthfulness about him and that innocence, and he's kind of like experiencing all these things for the first time. So we get to see his shock when he sees these crazy things happen, and we get to see, yeah, I understand why Han Solo is so jaded and cynical in the original movie. He's still very arrogant and selfish, and he has those Han Solo mannerisms to him. I think if Alden Ehrenreich gets put in a really good movie, this guy can shine. This guy's a really good actor, and I like him a lot. He's a very charismatic guy in interviews, too. So I was excited to see him as Han Solo. I know a lot of people weren't, but it was one of the least of my concerns. And his relationship with Chewbacca is probably the highlight of this entire movie. It was fantastic. It was so well done. Like, everything involving them was pretty great. Like, literally, Chewbacca in this movie is probably the best he's ever been. Like, it's between this and Force Awakens as the best Chewbacca role that's ever existed. You know they're gonna meet up, you know they're gonna have some banter together, you know he's gonna save him from slavery, but they do it in a way that isn't bad. They do it in a way that kind of surprises you, and I really liked everything with their interactions. They were kind of like an old married couple at times in the way that they argue. And they still have to get used to each other throughout this movie, so really one of the big hearts of this movie was Chewie and Han in this movie, and it was handled pretty much perfectly. I loved everything involving them. But also one of the highlights of this movie was Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. This is the thing that everyone was so excited about. Everyone was so skeptical about Alden, and everyone was like, Lando's gonna be amazing, Donald Glover's gonna bring it, and he absolutely does. Everyone's talking about him. Donald Glover is immensely talented, and he brings that to this role. He pretty much embodies Lando Calrissian flawlessly. He is fantastic in this movie. I think Billy D. Williams was probably really proud of Donald Glover when he saw this movie because he's just perfect. He's like Ewan McGregor being chosen for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Say what you want about the prequels, but Ewan McGregor was a perfect casting choice. He was so perfect for a younger Obi-Wan, and he did a really good job for what he was given. Donald Glover feels like that to me. He feels like the most perfect casting choice, and there's so many great jokes with him. Like, the best characters in this movie are the ones we've seen before, actually, because those characters are the ones that are developed the most in this movie. It's not like I'm being a fanboy and being like, oh, Han Solo and Lando are in this movie, they're my favorites. It's actually because they develop them and give them the best material to work with, because this is Han Solo's movie, and Lando gets some of the best material in the movie, and Chewbacca also gets some of the best material in the entire movie. They give all the characters we know the best material, and that's definitely a pro with this movie, that we have these characters being treated right, and I really enjoyed every single one of those three especially. They were great. And like every other Disney Star Wars movie, or like the original Star Wars movies, this movie is very well made on a technical aspect. There was a lot of really good CG, there's a lot of really good practical effects. It honestly astounds me the amount of work that goes into these Star Wars movies. There's so many practical puppets and just so many costumes that people have to create, and it just blows my mind, all the stuff that goes into it. It really shows in Solo. There's a lot of really cool creatures and effects, and even the cinematography really stood out to me. There's some really good shots in this movie that really belong on the One Perfect Shot Twitter. They are really, really good. The shot that sticks in my brain a lot is the scene where Han is walking into the sabacc table to find Lando, and he's like, it's through his legs, you can see Lando at the table. I really like that shot. It's a really cool one. Some of the humor in this movie really works. Like I said, from Lando Calrissian, it was great. I could definitely feel like Phil Lord and Chris Miller are probably a lot of involved in his scenes. Maybe not, but I feel like it wouldn't be surprising if they were involved with most of the Lando scenes in some sort of way, because they felt like Phil Lord and Chris Miller humor. And there's some humor that really works in this movie, and it had me smiling like an idiot. Seeing Han Solo and Lando interact again after all these years as younger versions of themselves is just like, it's such a joy to see. There's also some good fan service nods that I didn't mind. A lot of people are gonna be mad about the fan service nods, and it was one of the things I was really worried about. But there are a lot of them that I didn't mind. A lot of them are done in unexpected, clever ways, and I was like, I actually thought I'd hate it if you did that in this movie, but you did it in a way that kind of worked. I can't believe it. Not all the fan service moments works, not all the setups to Han Solo's character in the originals work, but there are a lot that surprisingly do. But yeah, I'll get into the flaws later. I don't want to get negative yet. And of course, all the action is really good. The train sequence, the Kessel Run, there's a lot of really good sequences in this movie. The gambling game between Han Solo and Lando, it's really good stuff. The Kessel Run really stood out to me as the best scene in the movie. You all know it's the Kessel Run, that's not a spoiler, it's kind of obvious. It was a really good sequence, and I enjoyed that immensely. It was really well done. The action is tons of fun, and it's done well. It's very well done at action, and you can tell that Lawrence Kasdan has worked on Indiana Jones before because he knows how to make really cool, like, set action ideas. And it actually does feel like its own story. It doesn't just feel like a thing that's trying to set up Han Solo and that's the only thing it's trying to do. It actually feels like its own story. And the continuity all works with the originals. That's something Disney has been good with so far, besides Star Wars Rebels. They've been really good with having continuity in their movies. Like, nothing really doesn't work. Like, you can watch the Solo movie or Rogue One and go straight into the originals, and there wouldn't be any continuity problems. They'd be well-made prequels to those originals in that sense. And I also like the ending to this movie. There are some things that absolutely don't work about it, but there are some things that I really enjoyed about it, and there are some surprises here and there and things that are done in ways that I didn't expect, and there's this one scene that really got me excited. And it does set up more movies, like, you know that. Everyone has mentioned that this movie sets up possible sequels, even Alden Ehrenreich did that to the public. And I'm intrigued to see where the other movies go. Whatever the heck is following this, I'm intrigued to see what it is, and I didn't think I'd ever be saying that about Han Solo, but I kind of am. I mean, if it got canceled, I'd be like, okay, fine, I'm not gonna cry over it. And now it's time to get into my cons. Here we go. The first 40 minutes of this movie, 40 minutes or so, I don't know exactly how long it is, are extremely rushed. It is... holy cow. The first 40 minutes of this movie really had me worried. I was like, this is the disaster that I thought it was gonna be. Gratefully, after those 40 minutes, it starts getting his footing back, but still, like, it felt so rushed. And it felt so abrupt. Like, it has a very fast pace. And fast pace in Star Wars isn't a problem. Like, it's an okay thing, but in the sense that they did it with this, there's so many things that could have been developed that aren't developed, especially the characters. Emilia Clarke has some interesting stuff later on in the movie, but mostly she's just kind of a boring character. She's just like, I'm Emilia Clarke and I'm on this adventure. She's like, later on in the movie she gets better, like I said, but through the start of this movie, I didn't care about her in the slightest. And Woody Harrelson in this movie, also, he's okay, he's fine. Like, Woody Harrelson is a really good actor, but they don't really utilize his talents in this movie. He's just kind of like, I'm Woody Harrelson, and I'm in this movie, and I don't know anything about Star Wars, and why am I here? I just want to get money. I think this character probably would have been honestly bad if Woody Harrelson wasn't playing him, because Woody Harrelson has natural talent to him, but otherwise he's just kind of a bland character, and a lot of decisions he makes don't feel warranted because he's barely developed. It definitely suffers from trying to cram too many things in one movie, because I feel like this movie has like a lot of things they gotta set up and a lot of things they gotta do. They gotta have all these moments that we know that Han is gonna go through, and it does feel like they're trying to cram too many things into one movie, and it just feels really just rushed, especially in those first 40 minutes. And when things happen to certain characters that we're supposed to care about, I didn't care. I was just like, oh, okay. Wow, you expect us to care about this? I don't even know this character. A lot of the humor could have been much better. Like I said, there is some humor that works, and I feel like Phil Lord and Chris Miller had some good jokes in the 20% of this movie that they made. But also, there's a lot of humor that had me cringe, and there was a lot of awkward humor. There's one joke, like, towards the beginning of this movie, again, it was just like, oh my goodness, I cringed. I cringed so badly. The humor half works and half doesn't. There's some good moments, but it could have been a lot funnier. A movie like this that's supposed to be a fun, lighthearted ride should be a lot funnier. Like, Marvel does that better. Marvel usually has a lot of good humor in their movies because they know they're ridiculous and stupid, except for maybe Black Panther, but they have a lot of humor in their movies, and they make the humor work well, and it kind of like helps you get through a bunch of mindless things that are going on. I think Rian Johnson does humor a lot better in Last Jedi. Like, a lot of people are probably going to try to shoot me in the head for saying that, but I really liked a lot of his humor in Last Jedi, and I felt like his humor worked a lot better than this humor did in this movie. Like, he had a lot of really clever ideas, especially with General Hux, and in this movie the humor doesn't always work. It feels a little bit awkward at times. And there's also some fan service moments, like I said, that are really bad. They made me cringe so badly, and it just felt like, yeah, this is the movie that everyone was worried that this movie would be. It'd just be like a safe, fine setup to Han Solo, and it's gonna have really dumb moments that lead into the originals. And it's kind of half that, and it's half not. Like I said, there are some good things about this movie, but some of the fan service moments just, they don't work. And I can't get into spoilers, so I can't say anything about that, but still, there were some cringy moments in there. And obviously this movie has little stakes as well. There are some risks that it takes later on, but there's not a lot of risks at all. It kind of just feels like a safe movie that Kathleen Kennedy was like, we gotta get a lot of money, so we gotta make this movie really safe, and we gotta make the fans like it. Unlike Last Jedi, which was very unique, and it was very risky. Say what you want about the movie, but Rian Johnson took so many risks with that movie, and he made something really different. And this movie just kind of feels like, a lot of the time, it feels like same old, because there are some scenes in this movie that are literally ripped straight from the originals. Like, there's a scene between Han and Kira that is exactly the same as a moment between him and Leia in Empire Strikes Back. It was like, you're just gonna recreate the same exact moment? Why would you do that? And I don't understand how Lawrence Kasdan is the one that wrote this, because Lawrence Kasdan can do things that are a lot less safe, and he can take a lot of risks, and he can do some dark things. So it's kind of just like, maybe his son was more involved with the script than I thought Lawrence Kasdan was. Maybe all the best parts of this movie were Lawrence Kasdan, and his son wrote all the not as good parts, but maybe Lawrence Kasdan just isn't up to snuff anymore, I guess. I don't know. And the character played by Paul Bettany Dryden is barely in the movie, and they want you to care about him, but you just don't. There are some intriguing scenes with him where he's like really intimidating and stuff, but he's barely in the movie. He has like no character to him. So it was really disappointing. Like, I saw potential there, but they don't do anything with it. It's like they had to rush so many things so they couldn't develop him in the slightest. The movie, in a way, feels like an extended episode of Star Wars Rebels, you know? It just feels like a really safe thing with some fine characters that do some fun things, and nothing else. And there's some quips that are really awkward and don't work. Like, I like Star Wars Rebels for the most part. There's some stuff I really like about it, but there are a lot of average episodes where nothing happens, and it doesn't feel like there's anything weight there. Solo kind of, sort of felt like that. But like I said, there are some good things in this movie. There are some things that I really enjoyed. There are definitely some scenes where I think Phil and Chris shines through, and there are some things in this movie that work, but I would have liked to see Phil Lord and Chris Miller do the entire movie. I would have liked to see what they had to do, and I can see that Phil Lord and Chris Miller probably just wanted to do things with the script that Lawrence Kasdan didn't want them to do, because the script was just okay, and Phil Lord and Chris Miller were like, we gotta do some new things with this. We gotta really push the boundaries and do something unique. And Kathleen Kennedy was like, no, that's not gonna sell tickets, so they took it away from him. Obviously, I'm just speculating, but I would have liked to see Phil Lord and Chris Miller stay on this movie. I don't care if it would have been a disaster, but I doubt it would be, because Phil Lord and Chris Miller know what they're doing. They took the Lego movie, and they did something so unique out of it. Nobody thought that movie would be good, but it was incredible. It's one of the best animated movies of the entire decade. So yeah, Solo's a decent, fine movie. I'll watch it again and I'll be like, that was alright. There are some things I enjoy in this movie, but I don't think I'll watch it like as much as the other 3 Disney movies or any of the original movies. I think it'll just be like a fun, passable movie that exists, and yeah, it's just a disposable Star Wars movie, and I don't want Star Wars to be like that in the future. I really am excited for the Rian Johnson trilogy and the Game of Thrones movies, because they explore entirely new things, and they're not gonna do things that we've already been talked about for many years. We're gonna actually see new things happen, new characters, new planets, new everything, and everything's just gonna be all fresh and new and different. And I want that. Don't keep doing these anthology movies forever. Like, I'm kind of interested in seeing what you do next for now, but I don't want it to keep going for too long. I'm just don't overdo it. Please, Disney, don't become Marvel, but worse. I'm gonna give Solo: A Star Wars Story a B-. Like I said, there's some things that I like about this movie for sure, and there's some good things, and it is competently made, and it's pretty fun, but there's nothing really else to it. There's nothing special to it, but again, it made me intrigued to see what's coming next, so that's a plus for sure. Alright guys, if you like my review of Solo: A Star Wars Story, be sure to like this video, be sure to subscribe, be sure to follow my Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.